Hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in like 2 weeks, has it? Today we have a special episode coming, or I don't know. Should I just stop saying special? I don't know. I'm just trying to be enthusiastic for the show. Either way, you remember like a month ago when I did an interview with that teacher? Well, I liked it so much, and I think you liked it so much that I did a sequel. I did another interview with another teacher, and I figured since school, when this episode will be out, I figured it'll be like a week ago. So I figured, why not talk about that again with them? Today we're gonna be talking about like what do teachers think about school? How do they cope with all the stress that kids and other people give the teachers, and what's it really like? I hope you enjoy this and subscribe. Check out my Spotify. All of these will be there. And yeah, check out all of my socials. Peace. Hi, how's it going?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Sorry you got COVID. That sucks.
Thank you, it sure does. I'm actually feeling a little bit better today, so that's good.
Yeah, thanks for saying yes to coming on my show. I'm glad to hear from you. So, before we start, do you mind telling me what made you decide to become a teacher?
Because I wanted to work with kids, I wanted to help kids, and I am kind of naturally just a helper type of person, so that's my main reasoning. And I kind of wanted to be a nurse, but I'm not like a huge fan of blood, so I decided to be a teacher.
It was only because of blood that you didn't become a nurse?
Yeah,
Huh.
not really into that.
Were there any jobs you had, like, besides being almost a nurse, were there any other, like, jobs before becoming a teacher?
Nope. I mean, like when I was in high school, I worked at a daycare and I did like other like babysitting things, but I've never had another like job. No,
Okay, well, I guess let's jump into it, shall we?
absolutely.
So, how long have you been teaching for?
21 years, actually.
That's
Seems crazy, but yeah, 21 years.
what grades have you taught?
My first year I taught special ed, which was like preschool special ed. And then I moved to Des Moines and I taught special ed for 5 years. And then for the last 15 years, I've been a fifth grade teacher.
For the people who don't know, can you like say what like special ed details?
Well, students who have discrepancies or needs that are usually about 2 years, like their academic progress is about 2 years below typical peer. They receive special education services. They can receive services in behavior, academics, math, reading, or writing. And it's just giving them small group instruction at their academic level. But they also get grade level core instruction as well. And the parents are or guardians have agreed to allow their child to receive the services. They've gone through some different testing and diagnostics before they receive the services, and then you're legally bound to providing, or the school district is, them with the special services.
So, like people with ADHD, Down syndrome, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, some of them receive special education services and some of them don't. Just depends on their needs and what the parents and teachers work together to come up with.
Go ahead. What's your favorite part of teaching?
Definitely teaching. My favorite part is making connections and building relationships with kids. And I definitely prefer to teach math. It's my favorite thing to teach, probably because I don't feel I was a very strong math student. And so just really took it upon myself to make sure that my students didn't go into life feeling like they weren't good at something. And hopefully I gave them a little bit of confidence in their math skills. I enjoy teaching reading, but I love teaching math.
And did you ever consider doing anything else, or is it just you're just gonna stick with math the full way through?
Well, I have to teach reading. I have to teach all the other subjects as well. Math is just my favorite part of the day.
Do you think teachers have are more appreciated now compared now or then?
Definitely, teachers are not appreciated now. I think people think that they're lazy and they just look for their summers off and, they don't realize all the things that we do. So I would definitely say teachers are not appreciated now.
Could you talk more on that if you would?
Well, just an example would be that I hear parents complain because they have to take their child with three friends to a birthday party and watch them for 2 hours. And they think it's hard and they think the kids talk back and they think they're disrespectful. And that's for 2 hours at a birthday party. So imagine what we do day in and day out.
It's a lot harder than just watching your kids.
Exactly.
Is there a way you like to keep your classrooms like a positive environment for the kids?
Yeah, I think just connecting with the kids. A lot of the kids already know me because I've been at my building for a long time, so they already know my face. A familiar face is very important, and then just having routines and making sure the classroom is structured so they're getting most out of their learning and their voice is heard. And I feel like I've been very successful at that. So I think I have a very relaxing classroom. I try to incorporate humor and some fun activities throughout as well, but we keep learning at the center, which I think is very important.
What do you do if a kid is having a bad day? Like, how do you try to cheer them up?
Well, I talk to them and see if there's anything I can do. Sometimes I just let it be because I know as an adult, I sometimes just want to be left alone, and I think that can really be a respectful way to handle it. Sometimes I will play basketball with kids if that's something that they prefer during recess. I'll talk to them during recess, as we walk the track together, or I can kind of figure out what to do based on the situation. But I would say give them space or have some one-on-one time, but don't interrupt the learning or the day because then everyone gets distracted.
Have there been any memorable like memories over the 21 years that you worked there that you like to keep in your mind?
Yeah, so I think that every year we have field day at the end of the year, and I think that's one of the things that the students always remember from fifth grade, just like being able to throw water balloons at each other or do the water slide together and have like dance parties outside. I think that's part of our, one of the memories that we always have for fifth grade. And then we have a clap out, and that is where we clap the fifth graders out of the building for their last time as elementary students. And I think that's just a memory that always sticks with kids and with me. And then we also have something called the culture fair. And during this time, I like the students to bring in information about their culture, their family, where they're from originally. It's just a really good way to connect, and some of the best memories I have are when students are actually teaching me about where they're from or what their culture is all about. And so that is something that's a really good memory for me.
What about like memories you don't want to like you don't really want to?
Yeah, I mean, I've had students like pass away from different things. Those are really hard. Former students, I should say, they weren't in fifth grade, but those are very hard things to deal with because once they're in your class, you have a connection with them and with their family. And so I think that's one of the hardest things is when former students die.
How does it feel? I talked to a recent teacher in an interview, and she said that she now works with one of her old students. Like, have you ever seen any of your old students?
Yeah, so one of my students, she is a student at Grandview right now, and she was also a practicum student in my class, and she's working to become a teacher.
Oh,
She's still in school right now, but yeah.
do you know what she's going to be working? Like, what she wants to teach them?
She's not sure yet, but she is excited to be African American teacher because we need more of them, and she's excited about that. So she doesn't know exactly, but yeah, that's something that she's excited about.
How do you think school is kind of different from the 80s to, 2024?
I would say that the parents were definitely more involved in the education, so the teachers didn't have as much responsibility, and students didn't have technology, they didn't have distractions that they do now. I would say that's the biggest thing.
Do you think it's because of like phones, or like is there another reason?
Yeah, I would definitely say phones are the biggest problem.
How was school like when COVID arrived? Like, how did that affect teachers in your opinion?
Well, it was obviously very difficult to conduct classes. And so we were being told a million different things in person, online, virtual, non virtual, just so many options. So it was really hard to, you know, maneuver from one thing to the next without knowing what tomorrow would bring. And so I think we did the best we could with what we knew at the time.
How did you deal with all of that?
Well, I just took it day by day. I think that was the most important thing to do is just one day at a time, you do what you can do and you move on from there.
How did you deal with students? Because they probably were able to get away with a lot more since you weren't there to actually talk with the person to person. How did that like?
Just did the best I could with what I had.
So
Parents had access online. They could watch me teach if they wanted, but there wasn't much I could do if students weren't doing the work. We needed to rely on parents to help us out for that.
so parents were a big role in that.
Yes.
How did it work, like, going back? Like, once, like, it was guessing, I think it was 2022 or something like that, when everything was kind of shifting back to normal. What was school like when you guys were trying to, like, keep everybody safe? Everybody was, like, starting to come back to the buildings and all that.
It was an adjustment because sometimes we had to wear masks and we had different protocols for washing hands and cleaning desks and that kind of thing. But we just, like I said earlier about routine and structure, we just try to structure our days up so kids could get into their new routines and be consistent with it.
So, students are like around the other students pretty much the whole week during the school year, and same as teachers. How do you guys like make friends out of them teaching, or what's that like?
Oh yeah, that's like one of the most important things is find your people in your building that you can laugh with, joke with, have fun with, but also, you know, learn from and get them on your side and it makes your job much, much easier because you always have your friends right beside you if you need them.
Have you made like lots of friends, or is it just mutual connections?
I would say I have a lot of teacher friends, not only in my building, but just in general. I would say the majority of my friends are teachers. I think it's good. It's interesting to learn from teachers that work in different buildings or different districts and how they do things. So I'm good with it.
All right, I like that. Going outside of COVID and all those questions, talking about like assessing like kids' work and all that. How do you assess their like work, like after they took a test, something like that?
Well, that's why we have the standards. So the standards tell us what we're looking for when we're assessing. So we use the standards to grade what students are doing. So I would say it's pretty easy based on level one, two, three, and four. So we use the standards to assess.
Could you explain just a little more if you don't mind?
So we use the standards to assess, and they have different levels. And so if we're learning a new skill, students probably aren't going to understand every component of it. So we would assess them probably at a one or a two based on how they do on our assessments. And then as we teach it longer and more in depth, it moves up the scale to a three or four. And so students can really, as they learn more, then that's really the level that they achieve would be what we would assess them on.
But they're not like old enough to really just cheat and look it up or anything like that.
No, I would say not because they don't really have access to the computer or other things during assessments.
How do you foster your love for students?
Well, I think you rejuvenate yourself over the summer so you can come back fresh and renewed. You take classes that will help you better understand different circumstances, different situations, understand different curriculums that might be coming out. So I think you take time to refresh yourself in the summer so you're ready for a new group each year.
If you saw your past self, like in a conversation, would you talk yourself out of going into teaching?
No.
No? How come?
Because it is very rewarding and it's very fun. There are just things that are difficult with it, but that's any job.
What about diverse students? Like, how do you teach them? Like different cultures and just stuff like that.
Same way I would teach any of them. We just listen, we understand, we interact, and the best teachers for ourselves are our students. So I feel like they teach us and we teach them.
I've heard like teachers really like when like they break out like activities and all that. What would you say your favorite one was over the years?
Well, as a teacher, I like to bring geometry to life by having kids create cities using 3D shapes. So I incorporate geometry and angles and lines and that kind of thing into our geometry unit. And then they make a city so they can really have a hands-on learning experience.
Is it all geometry based, like you mentioned, or do you have any like favorite projects that you do in your own classroom?
Well, that was in fifth grade. Like I did that as a teacher. For fifth grade, we have a geometry unit. And so that's what I would do. Like the hands-on learning is my favorite.
How do you like to like I mentioned earlier? You have kids of your own, husband, all that. What do you do to balance work and your family?
Well, I don't bring any work home, so I keep it all at school. Weekends are just for my kids, and same with the at night. I go to their events and I take care of them, so that's a good way to balance. Don't bring work home.
Keep it separate. Just a thing you've learned over the years, or is it just something you've always known how really to just do?
That's definitely something I've learned over the years.
How do you like to update your work methods?
I like to take classes. I just took some classes through the University of Iowa this summer just to freshen up what I've already learned, but actually add some new things, new research ideas that they had. I just like to keep up to date by taking classes.
What about long term planning? Like, what's your approach on that?
Like for the school year,
Yes.
I like to have a basic overview of what standards I need to teach and when they need to be taught. And then I kind of draft those out on a calendar. So I have a basic outline of when things need to be taught. And that's kind of how I long term plan.
If you were given the choice to, teach any grade, like what would you choose?
Well, I obviously love fifth grade because I prefer to stay in fifth grade. I would maybe go to sixth grade or I would go to third grade. I don't know why. I just think those seem like the next best options.
And the last question is, what's your typical day in school like? Going through like period one. If it's too much, you can say that. But if not, what is it like?
So we usually start our day with breakfast and a morning meeting, get going on the same page for the day. And then we do an hour of literacy, whole group. And then we do an hour of all block, which is kind of like small group literacy, learning about vocabulary words and independent reading time, that kind of thing. And then we spend an hour in specials. So each day the kids either have art, music, or PE. After that, we do more literacy work um, with fluency and vocabulary. And then we spend 30 minutes doing SEL or social emotional learning time. And then we have a break of recess and lunch, followed by about an hour and a half of math, and then another recess, and we go home.
And I do ask, how do you feel about school coming up? Because school's like literally next week, I believe. So, how do you feel about going back and having to do, everything we just talked about?
I feel great about it. I'm always ready for summer and then I'm always ready to go back. I don't know. It's just what I like to do. So I'm definitely ready.
You're not upset about summer ending?
No, not at all.
And before you do go, it was great having you. Thank you for saying yes.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah.
Happy to do it. I liked it. It was fun.
Yeah, I had this thing where you get 15 seconds to shout out like a website, company. You get the gist. Like anything you want to shout out, and you get to go now.
Okay, well, my favorite company, Coca-Cola, because I love Diet Coke, and every teacher pretty much that I know has a favorite drink, and mine just happens to be Diet Coke. So that's what I'm going to shout out. Keeps me happy, keeps me energized.
Well, that was great. Thank you for coming on, and I'm glad to hear from you. Hey, what's up? How's it going? If you're still listening, might as well subscribe and check out my Spotify. If you're not on my Spotify, check out my YouTube. If you like this, come back the next in 2 Wednesdays from now, because we're gonna have a good episode. You remember that episode with that young mom talking about her life and like how it was getting pregnant at 20? Well, I got in touch with her daughter, and we're gonna be talking about both sides. We're gonna be talking about what it was like since then, what it was like with her dad, how it was like growing up as a young mom, and it's a really good episode. I hope you like the long episodes. Anyways, check it out, subscribe, download, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.